Hi, my name is Joe Villareal, and I'm the Fire Code Compliance Officer in the City of Union City and BAT 7. I've been in Union City for 13 years. Today we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about some engine company crew inspections and some of the issues that we've encountered in the City of Union City, trying to go through and address some of these so that it'll make the process more streamlined and easier to process through for our admin and for billing. Couple of questions that crews can ask when they're making entry into the business to do the business license inspection, or the engine company crew inspection, is right off the bat, have you had a recent inspection by the Fire Prevention Bureau, yes or no? If the answer is no, then you can go ahead and just follow through and conduct your inspection. There shouldn't be any issues. If the answer is yes, you'd want to ask if the business owner, if you could please review a copy of that fire inspection form from the Fire Prevention Bureau so you could take a look at that and try to determine what issues are ongoing. After you're reviewing that permit or that inspection form by the Fire Prevention Bureau, take a look at that and try to find out, are there any ongoing violations with the building with regards to the fire sprinkler system, the fire alarm system, or perhaps the ANSEL system within the kitchen. Those are a couple of the major things that we would see within a business that might be, a concern to you and red flags. If in fact that is the case, my recommendation would be is to go through at the bottom of the fire inspection form, just put referral to Fire Prevention Bureau, the date and the reason why you're going to go ahead and refer it to fire prevention, because there may be ongoing prevention matters. That way, when you're passing this form up to your battalion chief, he's going to be aware that you didn't just not do the inspection, you pass it on because there's ongoing issues that fire prevention is already involved in. Some of the other questions that you can ask the business owner when you're within the business is ask them if they've made any TIs, tenant improvements to the space, such as the addition of any walls, any electrical, or any doors. And if in fact the answer is yes, you're going to want to ask them if they could please confirm that building department has gone through and permits were pulled and building department has finalized and approved all the construction that's taken place within that space. Otherwise, there may be unpermitted construction, and that could be an issue as well. So while you're within the business, a few things that you could take a look at that you'd want to be keyed in on are, for one, is if you're taking a look and you see flammables, combustibles, you see gas cans, propane, a flammables locker, those are going to be red flags to you that would indicate that there should probably be an operational permit for any of those items. Some of the other things that operational permits would be required for would be high piled. High piled is going to be any storage that's above 12 foot from the floor. The other thing would be, for example, a repair garage. If you're doing an inspection there, there's going to be combustible flammables because of the fuel, and there's going to be oils. Another operational permit would be for an assembly. If you go into a coffee shop or a restaurant and the occupant load is exceeding 50, that's going to be considered an assembly. There's going to be an operational permit that's required for that. If you find a forklift in a warehouse and you see propane on that forklift, there's an operational permit required for that propane because that's considered a compressed cylinder. If you go into a shop and you see a welding equipment or a cutting torch, that's going to require an operational permit for hot works. If you see cryogenic fluids inside of a restaurant, which is going to be the CO2 to operate the soda machine, there's an operational permit required for that because, again, that is a compressed cylinder. Or again, as I mentioned, if you see combustibles, flammables, gas, paint thinners, any kind of combustibles, flammables, chemicals that you would think would require the Fire Prevention Bureau to take a look at, there's probably going to be an operational permit that's required for that. Here's a copy of what an operational permit would look like, and this is just a sample. So if the business has an operational permit, they should have this in place, and they should be able to show it to you, or it should be posted next to the business license, and it should be current, because operational permits are good from January 1st to December 31st of every year. They do have to be renewed every year, otherwise they're not going to be valid. Some of the other things that you want to take a look at when entering the business is confirm with the business owner that the business that you're entering is in fact the business that is on the inspection form that you have. Unfortunately, I think there may be some disconnects between old documents and new businesses that have moved in that haven't been updated. So you may be doing an inspection for a business that may be a tax service, but yet your report may say that it's a notary. So you want to make sure that you're conducting the business inspection for the proper business. If possible, try to see if you can get a copy of a business card from the business owner and attach that to your inspection form, because that would be very helpful to Rebecca Liu, who's our fire prevention admin in Union City, so that she has a contact and she can also go through and take a look and then check with the finance department to find out if in fact they have a valid business license within the city of Union City. So as we're going through the inspection form, there's multiple items on here. I'm not going to go over specific items that are on here. Some of them are very self-explanatory, but some of the things to take a look out for, especially if you're going into a warehouse where you have high pile storage, again, that's any storage above 12 foot, is the flue space. Basically, when you have two racks that are butted back to back, there's an area between those racks and it's considered the flue space. The flue space is required to be open and unobstructed at all times, from left to right and floor to ceiling. The reason for that is if this is a sprinklered building, we want to make sure in the event of a fire, water is going to be able to get down from the sprinkler system down into that flue space and down into all the bays where there's going to be product. If that flue space is encroached, then it's going to inhibit the fire sprinkler system from working properly and it's going to obstruct the fire protection. Some of the other issues that you're going to find when you have racks installed is if you take a look, you're going to find in a lot of spaces where there's sheetrock penetrations, because when they're pushing the pallets into the racks, they go through and they're pushing it too far and they make holes and penetrations in the sheetrock. Now you've penetrated that 1 hour rated wall, and that is a violation in and of itself, and that needs to be repaired. That has to be restored to normal condition, meaning that they're going to have to cut that out and replace that with sheetrock to restore it back to the original condition. Some of the other issues to look at is when you're taking a look at high pile storage, is take a look at the anchor plates on the bottom. You want to see to make sure that those racks are properly bolted in the ground. A lot of times you'll go into racking areas and you'll find that racks are not bolted onto the ground, which is a huge violation, because here in California we have seismic activity, and without those racks being properly bolted into the ground, there's a huge liability and a huge danger in those racks shifting and moving in the event of an earthquake. Okay, so when it comes to conducting the electrical portion of the inspection based upon your form, please make sure that you're taking a look at any kind of extension cords that might be frayed, spliced, or damaged and not in good working condition. You want to make sure that you remove those and document that on your report. The other common violation that we see out in the field is the piggybacking of power strips. So basically what that is piggybacking or daisy chain of power strips, one to another, and then you're completely overloading one power strip all the way to the outlet. So that is a violation. So please make sure that you note that on your report and that you tell them to discontinuing that type of practice of the piggybacking of electrical cords. The other item to take a look at is the electrical panel. Make sure that the electrical panel is clearly visible and accessible at all times. The fire code requires that you maintain 36 inches of clearance in front of the electrical panel at all times. Make sure you go over to that electrical panel. Make sure you go over to that electrical panel, open it up, take a look inside, and make sure that all breakers are in place. If you have any missing breakers, please make sure that they replace those missing breakers with a blank out plate, which is just a basic piece of plastic that they put in to cover up that gap that's in there from the breaker that's missing. The other thing you want to look at is make sure that there's an electrical schedule that's taped up on the panel. Make sure that it's identifying all the electrical outlets in there. Overhead lights, lights in restroom, lights in the kitchen, lights in the office, electrical outlets, overhead lights in the warehouse. You want to specifically make sure all breakers are clearly marked and identified. That way, if it's operating a piece of equipment and that piece of equipment malfunctions, you can go over and trip that breaker. Otherwise, you're going to have to shut off power to the entire building to make sure that it's safe and secure for you guys to go ahead and operate in the event of an emergency. Those are some of the primary electrical issues that you want to take a look at. Some of the other basic ones are just going to be missing electrical outlet cover plates or missing light switch cover plates on the wall where you're coming in. But those are real, blatant, and those are pretty obvious to see. So those are some of the more common electrical issues that you want to address when conducting your business license or when you're conducting your inspection. Fire extinguishers is pretty self-explanatory. They They have to be currently serviced and tagged by State Fire Marshal's office. They have to be hung on a bracket. There should be a sign identifying the fire extinguisher, unless it's obviously there's only one extinguisher, so it's obvious. But in a high piled storage area, you do want to have signage posted high above 12 foot so that that fire extinguisher is going to be easily visible from any place within the warehouse, because it's going to be extremely hard if you got stock that's stacked up and you got a fire extinguisher at 5 foot, and you got stock that's above 12 foot. So make sure that they put that fire extinguisher signage in a visible location within the warehouse so that it can easily be seen. Make sure that fire extinguishers are not obstructed. A lot of times you'll go into businesses and they'll use a fire extinguisher as a coat rack, and you'll have a coat on there, or you'll have some stock around it, or they've taken the fire extinguisher off the bracket, used the bracket to hang stuff, and the fire extinguisher is now mounted on the floor. All fire extinguishers should be hung on their bracket. General housekeeping is another key item. If you're going through the business and you're conducting your inspection and it seems like it's cluttered to you, or it seems like it's very congested, more than likely it is. And more than likely there is a general housekeeping issue that has to be documented. They should be maintaining 3 foot to 4 foot clearance within the business so they can get to the doors, any exit door within the building. If there's stairs going up to a second floor, please make sure that those stairs are not obstructed with storage. I do see that quite a bit, where people go through and they'll put stock or they'll put storage on those stairs, and you cannot encroach on that. That is your egress pathway from the second floor down to the exit on the first floor. So please make sure that those are not obstructed. Make sure that when you're going through and doing these inspections, that all exits are clear. On a regular basis, we go in and we could see exits that are obstructed or compromised with stock or storage or garbage cans or pallets. So please make sure that you do remind the business owner to make sure that they clear those and keep those unobstructed at all times. The exit signs and emergency lights over those exit doors should be working, if in fact they have them. If they're paper signs, you don't have to worry about that. So that kind of covers the exiting portion of it. Let's go ahead and let's discuss fire access and signage. Obviously, there has to be a posted visible address at the front of the business that's visible from the road that fronts the property. Please make sure that that address is clearly visible. A lot of times we'll go in and the address is now obstructed by vegetation or an overgrown tree. So you're probably going to want to see if they can go through and trim that tree down or trim the vegetation down so that address is not blocked. Or if that address is faded because of paint, or because of the sun, or it's been overpainted, you may want to go ahead and ask them to repaint that, because addresses do have to be identified on a contrasting background, black on white, white on black, something along those lines. The other thing for access is the Knox box. Take a look around the building. In Union City, I try to be pretty diligent about putting stickers on all doors that have a Knox box, and I will put the sticker either on the left side or the right side of the door so the crews will know that the Knox box is going to be to either side of that door. Then go ahead and open that Knox box, take a look and test that key in the door to make sure it's current. If it's not, then you can give that key back to the business owner and then ask them if they could please go ahead and get you a new key. And you can note that, please provide a new key for a fire department Knox box on your report so that that could be provided and installed inside the Knox box. Something else to take a look at is our fire protection systems, our fire alarms, our sprinklers, and our ENSL systems. These are extremely critical. If the building is sprinklered, you want to make sure that you take a look at the fire riser and make sure it's got a current Title 19 5-year sticker on it. Make sure it's got current annuals, and typically make sure it's got current quarterlies. You want to make sure that that fire riser is not obstructed, that you have 3 foot of clearance around that fire riser at all times, and that there's no storage blocking or obstructing that. We do see that on a regular basis. With regards to the fire alarm, take a look and find out, if you can, where the fire alarm panel is. Take a look, make sure that that is accessible, and pop that panel open. Take a look at that, make sure it looks like it's in good working condition. Make sure that the panel is indicating in normal mode, that it's not in a trouble mode or a supervisory mode or any other kind of mode other than normal. If it is, you want to make a notation on your report. That way we can go ahead and take that up with the building owner or the property management company so they can go ahead and get that addressed by the fire alarm service monitoring company. So one of the things you want to make sure that you look at while you're out in the field is take a look at the stickers on the fire sprinkler system and on the riser. Take a look at the tags on the ENSL system, and take a look at the fire alarm system. A lot of times on the fire alarm system, you'll also find a sticker that shows that it was recently serviced and inspected. So take a look at that and make sure that that's current. And there may be a document box that's next to that fire alarm system as well, where you can open that document box and you'll find a copy of the most recent annual fire alarm testing and inspection report available for you to take a look at. So you could document that on your inspection report. Okay, so now that we've conducted our fire inspection and we're ready to exit the business, let's make sure that we speak to the owner and just go over line by line what the specific items were, what the expectation is with regards to repairs, and the time frame so they know when you're coming back out to do the reinspection. Please make sure that upon conclusion of the inspection that you do provide the business owner with a copy of this letter from the City of Union City. And this is specifically only for the City of Union City. It talks about the reason for the annual fire inspection, and then on the backside it talks about the fee that's related to that inspection, and that fee is related to the square footage. So please try to make sure that you get the square footage from the business owner. They should probably have that available on their lease. That way you could document that, because again, the City of Union City builds upon square footage. Without that information, it makes it a little bit difficult for them to go through and do the appropriate billing in the city. Other than that, thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you'll find this helpful. If there's any questions that you ever have out in Union City, please feel free to call myself or Stan, and we can go ahead and help you guys through this process. Thanks for watching.